See her, so shameless. Getting married to a mechanic. A whole Mosu daughter, and this is what she brings home? Was she born this foolish, or did love do that to her? Maybe she couldn't find better. Oga mechanic, where's your suit from? Your own workshop? Look at this, even the floor is rejecting him. Somebody get him a mop. Might as well put him to work since he's already dressed for the parts. Folake watched the entire scene unfold. She simply looked away, letting it continue. None of them knew how much they would regret this night. Drop where you are watching from in the comments section, and if you believe loyalty should never be forgotten, type Ireti in the comments below. No, no, no! Not now! Come on, not now!
You need help?
I don't have money for a mechanic right now.
I didn't ask for money. Try it. Loose wire. Happens a lot.
Let me pay you, please.
You helped my aunt last year. Get home safe, Ireti.
You met a mechanic on the side of the road. Now you're smiling at your phone like a teenager. A mechanic. You met him on the side of the road.
I'm not smiling.
You are smiling. I know your face.
We've talked twice.
Twice is how it always starts. Ireti, men like that don't have futures.
That's not fair.
Fair doesn't pay rent. Be smart about it.
Tell me something true.
True how?
Not the polite version, the real one.
My father died when I was young. My mother struggled to keep the workshop running.
Why are you telling me this?
Because I'd rather you hear the truth from me.
I'm not asking you to pretend. Ask me again in 6 months if you don't believe me.
All right, I will. Ireti, will you marry me?
Yes! Yes! 1,000 times yes! Have you lost your mind? Is this what I raised you for? What will people say?
You raised me to think for myself.
I raised you to have better sense than this. Have you lost your mind? A mechanic who rents one room? Is this what I raised you for?
You raised me to think.
I raised you to have sense. You will care. And when that day comes, don't come back here expecting open arms.
Then I hope you remember saying that.
You could still change your mind. Nobody would blame you.
I'm not changing my mind.
I'm just saying, once you walk out there, that's it.
Why does everyone warn me?
Because some fires don't look like fires.
What does that mean?
Forget it. She clearly did not check the guest list. I know, it is just so dynamic. She clearly did not check the guest list. Look at that dress, it's far too much. This whole thing is just for show.
Found your father's name in the old file.
I have to call you back. 3, Ireti. Rent is due in 5 days.
I picked up an extra shift. It helps.
You shouldn't have to.
You promised we'd build something ours.
Easy would be nice.
We'll figure it out. We always do.
The next week, it happened again. Same envelope. Same careful walk. Where do you go every Thursday? She finally asked, keeping her voice light, testing the water. Just an errand. He didn't look up from tying his boots. What kind of errand takes an hour and leaves you looking like you've seen a ghost when you come back? His hand stilled. Ireti, please. Not tonight. You keep saying that. Not tonight, not now, not yet. When? Say. He didn't answer. He grabbed his jacket and left, and she stood in the doorway long after he disappeared down the road, the same cold feeling from their wedding night settling back into her chest. The following Thursday, she followed him. She kept her distance, ducking behind a stall when he glanced back, watching him walk nearly 40 minutes into a part of town she barely recognized. He stopped outside a small, weathered house, knocked twice, and waited. The door opened. A woman stood there, older, her eyes unfocused in a way that made Ireti's stomach drop. Seyi hugged her, gentle, careful, like she was made of something breakable. He pressed the envelope into her hands. Ireti's breath caught. Her mind raced ahead of her, filling in a story she didn't want to be true. Then the woman looked past Seyi's shoulder, straight at Ireti standing frozen across the road, and her entire face changed. The warmth drained out of it, replaced by something close to fear. "Your father," the woman whispered, loud enough to carry. "Is that?" Seyi turned, following her gaze, and found Ireti standing there, exposed, caught. "Ireti." His voice cracked. "It isn't what you think." "Then tell me what it is," Ireti said, her voice shaking. "Because right now, I don't know what to think at all." The woman's hand trembled as she reached for the door, like she wanted to close it and pretend none of this was happening. "Please." Seyi stepped toward her. "She's my wife." "It's all right, she's my wife." "Your wife?" The woman's eyes moved between them, wide, frightened. "You married Nwosu." Ireti froze. "How do you know my family's name?" "I never told him where, I never said." "Ireti, come inside." Seyi's voice was low, urgent. "Please. I'll explain everything, but no standing out here." She hesitated only a second before following them in. The inside of the house was small, clean, sparse. The woman sat down slowly, her hands folded in her lap, still shaking. "This is my mother," Seyi said. "Edeora." "Your mother?" Ireti stared at her, then at him. I saw the envelope, I thought." "You thought I was seeing someone else?" A tired, sad smile crossed his face. "I know how it looked. I should have told you the truth from the start, but I didn't want you to feel obligated to help carry it too." "Carry what?" "My mother's mind isn't what it used to be. Some days she knows exactly who I am. Other days, she doesn't recognize me at all. I pay for someone to check on her, for her medication, for food. Every Thursday, without fail. That's the envelope." Ireti's anger drained out of her, replaced by something heavier. "Why didn't you just tell me?" "Because you already carry enough worrying about our own bills. I didn't want to add this on top." "Say, I'm your wife. This isn't extra weight. This is ours now, remember? You said it yourself." He nodded slowly, guilt written across his face. "You're right. I'm sorry." Edeora had been quiet through all of it, watching Ireti with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. Now she spoke again, her voice cracking. "Your father," she said. "Adewale Nwosu." "That is your father, yes." Ireti's chest tightened. "Yes." "How do you know that name?" Adeora's hands twisted together in her lap. "He knew my husband. A long time ago." "Mama," Seyi started. "No," Edeora shook her head firmly. "She should know. She married into this, she deserves to know." "Know what?" Ireti's voice came out sharper than she meant. "Please. Whatever it is, just tell me." Edeora was quiet for a long moment, staring at her folded hands like the words were buried somewhere in them. "Your husband's father did not die the way everyone believes," she finally said. The room went completely still. "What do you mean?" Ireti whispered. "Officially, an accident. That is what the paper said, what everyone was told to believe." Adeora's eyes lifted, meeting Ireti's directly. "But I was his wife. I know what I saw in the weeks before. The fear in him. The way he stopped sleeping. The way he told me, if anything ever happened to him, not to trust certain people." "What people?" Adeora's gaze didn't waver. "Your father was one of them." Seyi's jaw tightened, but he said nothing, watching his mother with an expression Ireti couldn't quite read, like he'd had pieces of this before, but never all of it laid out so plainly. "That's not possible," Ireti said, though her voice lacked the conviction to make it sound true. My father is a businessman. A respected one. He wouldn't. I am not saying he did anything with his own hands, Edeora said gently. I am saying he knew something. And he never said a word. Before we go further, if you think Ireti deserves to know the whole truth about her father, drop a comment below and let us know. And if this story has already pulled you in, make sure you're subscribed, because what's coming next is going to change everything you think you understand about this family. The ride home was silent. Seyi kept both hands on the handlebars, eyes fixed on the road, and Ireti sat behind him with her arms around his waist, her mind somewhere else entirely. Say something, he finally said, once they'd parked outside their small room. I don't know what to say. I didn't know how deep this went until tonight either. My mother rarely talks about my father's death. Today was the most she said about it in years. Do you believe her? He was quiet for a long moment. I don't want to believe her. But I also don't think my mother has ever lied to me. Not once. Ireti sat down on the edge of their bed, pulling her knees up to her chest. If my father knew something about your father's death and said nothing, what does that make him? I don't know. What does that make me? Married into the family that maybe hurt yours. Seyi crossed the room and knelt in front of her, taking both her hands in his. You are not your father, Ireti. Whatever he did or didn't do, that has nothing to do with who you are or what we built together. But if it's true, then we find out. Together. Not to destroy anyone. Just to know. His eyes held hers steadily. I need to know what happened to him. I've needed to know my whole life. I just never had a place to start looking. Now I do. She nodded slowly. Then I'll help you look. The first place Ireti looked was somewhere she never expected to find anything, her father's old study, late at night, while he slept upstairs believing his daughter had gone home hours ago. She moved carefully through his file cabinet, careful not to disturb the order of things, scanning folder after folder of old business records, contracts, names she didn't recognize. Then she found it. A folder, tucked behind newer files, edges worn soft from age. Inside, a single photograph. 4 people stood together in it, younger versions of faces she have recognized. Her father, unmistakably, arm around another man's shoulder, both of them smiling like old friends. Beside them, a second man she didn't know. And at the edge of the photo, a young woman, her expression harder to read. Ireti's breath caught. The young woman was her mother. She turned the photograph over. A date was scrawled on the back, nearly 2 decades old, along with 3 names she hadn't expected to see written together in her father's own handwriting. Adewale. Chokuma. Folek. Chokuma. Seyi's father's name, spoken only once by Edeora, now staring back at her in ink. Her hands trembled as she slid the photograph into her bag. Whatever connected these 3 people together, it went back further than a single business deal gone wrong. It went back to before Ireti had even been born. And her mother, the same woman who had begged her not to marry a mechanic, who had warned her about ruining her future, her mother had known Seyi's father too. The question that settled cold in Ireti's chest wasn't whether her parents were connected to Seyi's family. It was how much they'd been hiding, and for how long. Ireti didn't sleep that night. She sat with the photograph in her lap until the sky outside turned grey, turning it over and over, reading the same 3 names until they stopped looking like real words. By morning, she'd made a decision. She found her father in the garden, the way she always did when he wanted quiet before the rest of the house woke up. He looked up when she approached, and something in her face must have told him this wasn't a casual visit. Ireti. You're up early. She placed the photograph on the table between them without a word. Both's face changed the moment he saw it. The color drained slowly, and his hand, reaching for his tea, stopped halfway. Where did you get this? Your study. I want the truth. All of it. Ireti, you shouldn't be going through my. Chokuma, she said, cutting him off. That's Seyi's father's name. He died 16 years ago. And you knew him. You knew him well enough to have your arm around his shoulder in a photograph with Mama. Both set his cup down carefully, like his hands might betray him if he moved too fast. Sit down, he said quietly. I'll stand. He exhaled, long and slow, the sound of a man who'd been carrying something for a very long time and finally felt it slipping from his grip. Chokuma and I were partners. Years ago, before you were born. We ran a logistics company together, small at first, then it started growing fast. Faster than either of us expected. And Mama. Your mother worked with us in the early years. Before we were married. Before any of this. He gestured vaguely at the house around them, at the life they'd built. She kept the books. So you all knew each other. Why hide that? Why let me marry into that family without saying a word? Because the moment I saw his son's face at your engagement dinner, I understood exactly who Seyi was. And I hoped, prayed, honestly, that it would never come up. That you two would never need to know. Why does it matter so much that we didn't know? Her voice rose despite herself. Unless there's something to hide. Bode's jaw tightened. He looked away, toward the garden, like the answer might be easier to give to the flowers than to his daughter's face. The business failed, he said finally. Badly. We lost almost everything. Investors pulled out, contracts fell apart, and somebody had to take the blame publicly, or all three of us would have gone down with it. So you let it fall on him. It wasn't like that. Wasn't it? Both hands curled into fist on the table. There were things happening that none of us fully understood at the time. Money disappearing that shouldn't have been disappearing. Chokuma became convinced someone inside the company was stealing from us, and he wouldn't let it go. He kept digging, kept threatening to expose whoever it was, no matter what it cost him. And then he died. Yes. How? Both eyes finally met hers, and for the first time in Ireti's life, she saw real fear in her father's face. I don't know exactly what happened that night. I wasn't there. But I know he called me 2 days before, terrified, saying he'd found something, that he was going to bring it to the authorities. And you did nothing. I told him to be careful. That's all I could do. That's not enough, Papa. Her voice cracked on the word Papa, the childhood name slipping out despite everything. A man is dead. His wife lost her mind from grief. His son grew up thinking his father just vanished into an accident. And you're telling me you just told him to be careful? Both said nothing. The silence stretched long and ugly between them. Ireti found the recording 3 days later, buried in an old external drive she found while searching through more of her father's things, this time without asking permission at all. She almost didn't play it. Some part of her already knew that whatever was on it would change something permanently, that once she heard it, there would be no version of her father she could go back to believing in fully. She played it anyway. The audio was rough, muffled, clearly recorded in secret. 2 voices, unmistakably her father's and another man's she now recognized from Adora's description as belonging to Chokuma. If you keep pushing this, you destroy both our families, her father's voice said, tight with something that sounded almost like a threat. I don't care anymore, Bode. People deserve to know where their money went. You don't understand what you're playing with. Then explain it to me. Explain why every time I get close to an answer, someone tells me to stop asking. If you expose me, both our families will suffer. Is that what you want? For your son to grow up with nothing, because you couldn't let this go. The recording cut off there, abrupt, like whoever made it had been interrupted. Ireti sat frozen, staring at the small speaker like it might explain itself further if she waited long enough. If you expose me. Not if you expose the thief. Not if you expose whoever is really responsible. If you expose me. Her father's own words, recorded in his own voice, threatening the man who died 2 days after making that recording. She played it 3 more times, hoping each time that she'd misheard something, that the words would rearrange themselves into something less damning. They never did. She brought it to Seyi that night, her hands shaking as she played it for him in their small room, watching his face change with every word. When it ended, he sat completely still for a long moment. He threatened him, Seyi said finally, his voice flat. 2 days before he died, your father threatened my father. Seyi. Don't. He stood up abruptly, pacing the small space of their room. Don't defend him right now. I can't hear it right now. I'm not defending him. I'm scared too. Your father. He stopped pacing, turning to face her, something raw and furious in his eyes. Your father might have had something to do with why I grew up without mine. And you knew that man my entire childhood, sitting across from him at dinners, calling him respectable, calling him successful, while I was working myself to exhaustion just to keep my mother fed. I didn't know, Seyi. I swear to you, I didn't know any of this until a few days ago. I believe you. His voice softened slightly, but the anger underneath didn't fully leave. I believe you didn't know. But I don't know if I can sit in a room with him. Not right now. Maybe not ever. He grabbed his jacket from the back of the chair. Where are you going? I need air. I need to think, Ireti, and I can't do that here right now. He left before she could stop him, the door closing behind him with a quiet finality that felt heavier than any slam could have. Ireti sat alone in the room, the recording still open on the table in front of her, her father's voice frozen mid-sentence on the screen. If you expose me, both our families will suffer. She didn't know, sitting there in the silence, whether those words meant her father had killed a man, or whether they meant something else entirely, something she hadn't uncovered yet, something that would flip everything she thought she understood one more time. All she knew was that Seyi hadn't come home by midnight, and the space beside her in their bed had never felt so cold. Seyi didn't come back that night or the next. On the 3rd day, Ireti found him at his workshop, sitting on an overturned crate, staring at nothing. You can't disappear on me, she said, sitting down beside him. Whatever this is, we face it together. That's what you promised me, remember? I know what I promised. He rubbed his face with both hands. I just don't know how to look at your father the same way again. Then don't look at him yet. Look at the truth first. All of it. We still don't know everything. He was quiet for a moment. Kelechi thinks I should confront him. Publicly. Force him to admit what he did. You told Kelechi. He's my closest friend, Ireti. Who else was I supposed to tell? Something about that sat wrong with her, though she couldn't name why yet. 2 days later, Ireti finally confronted her father directly, recording in hand, demanding the full truth or nothing at all. Both sat across from her in his study, looking older than she'd ever seen him. I didn't kill him, he said quietly. I need you to believe that first. Then explain the recording. That conversation happened months before he died. Not 2 days before. Months. Both pulled out an old ledger from his desk drawer, worn and yellowed. Chokuma and I discovered someone had been stealing from the company for over a year. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. We were going to expose whoever it was, together, once we had proof. So who was stealing? Both hesitated. We thought it was one of the junior accountants. A young man named Kelechi. Ireti went very still. Kelechi. Seyi's friend. They grew up together. Kelechi worked for us briefly before Chokuma died. After the death, he vanished from the company entirely, and we never pursued it further. Everyone assumed the investigation had simply died with Chokuma. He's still in Sei's life. He's still around him every single day. Then you need to be very careful about what you tell him next, both said. Ireti found Kelechi that evening at a small bar near the workshop, exactly where Seyi said he usually was. Ireti. He smiled, easy as always. Everything all right? I know about the missing money. From years ago. The company you worked for with my father and Chokuma. His smile didn't move, but something behind his eyes went cold and calculating. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. She kept her voice steady, though her heart was pounding. I think you've spent years making sure Seyi never looked too closely at what really happened to his father, because if he did, he'd find you. Kelechi leaned back slowly. You have no idea what you're accusing me of. Then tell me I'm wrong. He was quiet for a long moment, and in that silence, Ireti got her answer. Chokuma was going to ruin me, Kelechi finally said, his voice low. One mistake, years ago, and he wanted to destroy my entire future over it. I panicked. I told the wrong people that he was digging where he shouldn't be digging, people who made problems disappear for the right price. I never thought it would go that far. You had him killed. I didn't kill anyone. I made a phone call I've regretted every day since. His hands were shaking now. And when Seyi started asking questions years later, I stayed close to him. Not to hurt him. To protect him from finding out what I'd done. I told him things to keep him pointed away from the truth. Away from me. You've been lying to him his entire life. I've been protecting him. You've been protecting yourself. But there was one more piece, one Ireti didn't expect, sitting quietly at home the whole time. Temitop came to her that night, pale, her hands wringing together. There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you years ago. What is it? The night Chokuma died, I was there. Not directly, but, Temitop's voice broke. Kelechi asked me to help retrieve some documents from Chokuma's office. I didn't know why. I didn't ask enough questions. I just wanted him to notice me back then, and he asked, and I said yes. Temitop. I didn't know what would happen. I swear to you, I didn't know anyone would get hurt. When it did, I panicked, and Kelechi told me if I ever said anything, I'd be just as responsible as him. So I stayed quiet. I stayed quiet for 16 years, Ireti. I let you marry into that pain without saying a word. Ireti stared at her sister, feeling something crack open in her chest. You knew. This whole time, every warning you gave me, every strange look, you knew. I was trying to keep you away from the truth. Not from Seyi. From what I'd done. Everything came apart quickly after that. Kelechi disappeared from the city within the week, and though the authorities opened a case, there was little left to prosecute after so many years. Bode and Ireti's father gave a full statement, finally clearing his own name of the worst of it, though the guilt of his silence never fully left him. Temitop confessed everything to her parents, and the fallout in the family was slow, painful, and long overdue. Seyi took the longest to speak again. He sat with his mother for hours, telling her everything, watching relief and grief move across her face in equal measure. He wasn't killed by your family, Edore finally said, holding her son's hands. He was killed by fear and greed that had nothing to do with love, Seyi. Let it go now. Let him rest. It took Seyi 3 days to come home. Ireti was waiting when he finally walked through the door, and neither of them said anything for a long moment. I needed to know, he finally said, whether I married you because I loved you, or because some part of me wanted to get close to the truth about my father. And what did you find? That I loved you first. Before any of this. The truth just happened to be standing beside you. She crossed the room and held him, and for the first time in weeks, the space between them felt whole again. For years past. Seyi's workshop grew into a full garage, then a small fleet of service vehicles, built one honest job at a time, without a single shortcut taken along the way. Ireti finally opened the pharmacy she'd always dreamed of, funded by nothing but their own steady, patient work. And then came the night at the gate. Fulek pounded on the metal, rain soaking through her dress, Bode on his knees in the mud, Temitop frozen by the car. Ireti, please. We were wrong. You weren't wrong about him, Ireti said quietly. You were wrong about me. Behind her, footsteps. Seyi stepped into the doorway, alive, present, exactly where he belonged. He's right here, Ireti said. He was always going to come home. The only question was whether the rest of you would still have a place in his life when he did. Fulek broke down completely. Bode lowered his head. Temitop said nothing at all, because there was nothing left to say. Ireti didn't slam the gate shut this time. She simply stood there, her husband beside her, and let her family finally understand what it meant to lose something you never valued until it was gone. Maybe you know someone like Ireti. Someone who was told they were making a mistake, who stood firm anyway, and who ended up proving everyone wrong in the end. Or maybe you're the one who did the doubting, and you've never quite said the words "I was wrong" to someone who deserved to hear them. Tell us in the comments, has this ever happened in your own family? If this story felt real to you, subscribe, because we tell stories like this every single week.